Guys, welcome to Saguaro Culinary Kitchen again. This is Aaron, Miss Thomas. Today we're gonna make super easy chicken fajitas, okay? This is just gonna be a base recipe, and then you can, let your imagination run wild, add whatever veggies you want to it. So I'm just gonna show you how to get it done, basically. So let me grab a quick bowl, and then we're gonna start. We are also gonna do tortillas. That'll be a separate video, just so it's not lumped in with this. If you guys just wanna make tortillas, that'll be its own separate 5-minute video, okay? All right, so what we're gonna do, so let's go over ingredients real quick. So we got some chili powder. Okay.
What's the light?
A little bit of chili powder. A little bit of garlic powder. Don't confuse garlic powder with garlic salt. You don't want to add a lot of salt to this. We just want the garlic flavor, okay? Okay. A little paprika. There's a couple different ones. You'll see Spanish paprika. You'll see Hungarian paprika. It's used in a lot of Hungarian dishes. It gives it a real smoky flavor. We're going to use a little bit of ground cumin. When you smell cumin, when you open it up, it smells like chili, basically, okay? We're gonna use oregano. We're gonna use pepper. We're gonna use salt. Okay, a little bit of salt. I'm gonna use a yellow onion today. You're more than happy to use a white onion. White's gonna be a little bit stronger onion flavor. I don't recommend using a red onion for this, so yellow or white, please. Okay, we're gonna use a couple bell peppers. It's visually more appealing if you have two of separate colors, but if you just have green bell peppers, absolutely just use that, whatever, that's fine. So we're just gonna have the mix of the green and the yellow. It'll give it a nice color, all right? And we're gonna use chicken breast today, okay? So you can absolutely use chicken thigh. It'll actually turn out a little bit more moist. Some people don't like chicken thigh, that's okay, but use any part of the chicken you want. You can use white meat, you can use dark meat, you can use anything you want. So let's bake our spice mix real quick. So we'll go over it. So some recipes you'll see, guys, that call for half of a tablespoon, okay? So it's hard to measure out a half tablespoon. I mean, you can eyeball it. I don't recommend that. So just remember, a tablespoon is 3 teaspoons. So if somebody asks for half a tablespoon, it's 1.5 teaspoons, okay? So this is gonna call for 1.5 teaspoons of the chili powder. And you're just gonna put it all in a bowl right now. We'll mix it up in a bit, but you're just gonna dump everything in the bowl right now. So 1.5 teaspoons. So that's our 1 teaspoon. Okay, right in. Then we're gonna find our half. So if you guys use these, it usually goes 1 tablespoon, 1 teaspoon, half a teaspoon, and 1/4 teaspoon. Those are the normal measurements you're gonna find. Okay, so right in. So we're gonna do 1.5 teaspoons of the garlic powder. Okay. So, just so you don't contaminate your garlic, sort of just get the chili powder out. Or you can just use little individual bowls like this. That's absolutely fine, but sort of just clean it out. You don't want chili powder in your garlic powder, because not every dish you use garlic powder for is going to call for chili powder. So just make sure your measuring spoons are clean. Okay, guys, right in. Now we're going to do our half. Okay, so that's 1.5 teaspoons of the chili powder. That's 1.5 teaspoons of the garlic powder. So paprika can be very strong. So we're just gonna use half a teaspoon of the paprika today, okay? And that's just gonna bring that smoky flavor to it. Okay, half a teaspoon, right in our bowl, okay? We're gonna do about 1.25 teaspoons of the ground cumin. So let's get our teaspoon. Okay, that's our teaspoon of cumin. So let's grab 1/4 teaspoon. So the littlest one on the bottom, okay? Okay, there's that. Okay, we're gonna grab about half a teaspoon of the oregano. Half a teaspoon, just make sure it's cleaned out. Okay, it's gonna go right in. Okay, we're gonna do half a teaspoon of salt. Okay, and we're gonna do 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. Remember, you can always add pepper and salt later back into it. If you're like, oh, it's not peppery enough or it's not salty enough, you can add more in later. So we're just gonna mix this up real well. Okay. So at this point, we're done with the measuring spoon, so feel free to use it as a spoon. That's okay. So this is basically, this is fajita seasoning mix right here. You can buy this in the store pre-made. This is basically what's in it. But, I always find it better. You can adjust a little bit more. If you make it at home, you can make large batches. This is ahead. You can do whatever you want. So we're just going to smash it up a little bit. Just make sure, so the garlic powder can clump a little bit, so just get it broken up. But yes, so this is our dry rub right here. So a dry rub is anything that goes on the chicken without any oil or water involved in it. So if I added a little bit of oil, this would turn into a wet rub. but the wetness of the chicken is actually going to hold the dry rub right on it, okay? So the chicken breast we're going to use today is a little thick. I'm just going to sort of cut it in half just to make it cook more evenly. So we're just going to cut this right down. Same as before we did the chicken parm, we're just butterflying it. So we're just going to get a couple smaller pieces. Okay, and we're just going to take our chicken, we're going to dunk it right into the seasoning mix, and we want to get a lot on there, okay? Remember, the chicken's wet, so it's going to stick. And then what I want you guys to do at home is rub it into it. This is where the rub of the dry rub comes in. You're going to rub it in. So you can see how it's getting wet, and it turns into like a crust for it. So you can do this overnight, you can do this 6 hours ahead, you can do it 15 minutes before, it doesn't really matter. The longer it sits in this dry rub, the more flavor it's going to pick up. But you just want to make sure the chicken is absolutely covered in this. This is what's going to help us build our crust, and this is where a lot of the flavor is going to come from. So you just want to rub it in real good. You know, give your chicken a flip, just make sure it's all over. So you guys can sort of see. So you see how that, see how the rub is sticking to it? Okay, so those are our pieces of chicken. At this point, we're going to start heating up saute pan or a shallow saucepan over here. So I'm just going to turn it on low, medium low heat right now. I'm going to add about 3 tablespoons of canola oil. You can use olive oil, vegetable oil, whatever you want to use, okay? So about 3 tablespoons, just enough to sort of coat the bottom of the pan. Okay? And we're just going to let this heat while we cut our veggies, all right? So that's going to heat up. We're going to let our chicken sit just so it can pick up some of those flavors. Okay? Just so you guys at home, I want you guys to see this. We're using the color-coded cutting boards today. Yellow is for chicken, white is for anything else, basically. You know, we have different colors, but when you guys come back to class, we're going to be using the different color-coded cutting boards, okay? So I just want you guys to start being aware of it. So just remember, yellow is chicken. We'll go over the other ones when we start doing the meats. So we're going to cut our onion, and we're going to use a whole onion today, so. Okay, so take the top, take the bottom. Grab my trash can. Bring it over. So just so they don't get confused up with everything else, get the peels out as you work, okay? So now that we got our top and bottom, we're just gonna peel our onion. You can find a good good layer that'll just, everything will come right off and it'll leave you a nice clean onion. Okay. Yeah, so make sure to get all the peels away from here because they can get mixed into the raw onion pretty quick, so just get them out. There's nothing worse than picking through like onion skin later. So we're just gonna cut it right down the middle. So for fajita veggies, what you want is half moon or julienne. So I'm just gonna pop the middles out. I don't want those because they end up being too big in there. So I'm gonna pop the middles. Okay, just use your knife, get in the middle of it. Oh no, it'll come right out, okay. Dig it out. Okay. So now we're just going to real thin julienne, okay? You don't want these super thick because then they'll cook weird in the pan. They'll be like basically raw while the chicken's getting done. So we're just gonna, so when I say like half moons, this is just what I'm talking about. So you guys can see it. As you put them in your bowl, break them up. They'll get broken up in the pan later, but it's just easier to work with when you just get them busted up like this. Okay, so that's half an onion. If you see really large pieces like this, like thick large pieces, just get them out. They're going to cook differently than the rest of the onion, and that's not what we're trying to do. Okay, I got some onion sitting over here. Okay, so I'm going to do my other half of onion. Cutting onion is never fun. It always makes you cry. You get used to it, though. Okay. Okay, that one's a little thick. I want that out. Okay, guys, so that's our onion. Break it up. And they fall apart. If you see any skin, just sort of pick it out. Okay. They come apart real easy. Just give them a toss. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to work with bell pepper. This is something we haven't worked with yet this year, but we'll use a lot of these this year, guys. So all you're going to do with the bell pepper is you're going to take the top, you're going to take the bottom. Okay, so you can sort of see. So that's all the stuff we want out right there. So all you're going to do is pop your finger in behind, lift up, and it comes right out. Do the same on the other side. And then you can sort of just reach in and get the white vein part out. There's nothing wrong with it. It's completely edible. You want to get as much seeds out as you can, but the white vein part is absolutely edible. It just doesn't look good. Okay, we're gonna cut that right down the middle. Okay, so now we got, just tap it to get the rest of the seeds out. So now we got our half of a pepper basically, and we're just gonna cut this into little strips. Okay, we want it about the same thickness as the onion. So there's sort of a weird thing, and you guys will start to learn this as you go. Peppers are very, very odd shaped sometimes. Sometimes you get a real squat pepper, and like you'd only have like this much to start. At that point, you'd flip it lengthwise and cut it like this, okay? So just like, you just want to get the strips out. So, you know, do what you need to with the pepper you have, basically. Right in the bowl. Okay, so now we're gonna cut our yellow pepper. Same as before. Take the top. Take the bottom. Trash. So when you cut into peppers, so this one had a baby pepper going. So just get it out. Don't eat it. Okay. And then another easy way to get the seeds out is just tap it. And the seeds will start to come out on the board, okay? Okay, so we got our yellow pepper. I'm just gonna cut it in nice strips here. Peppers are actually a really fun thing to cut. Like it's a good way to practice your knife skills. I really like cutting peppers, cucumbers, stuff like that. So we're gonna use, so for the amount of chicken, remember add more pepper if you need, add more onion if you need. You know, it depends if you're doing like 4 chicken breasts, up it to about 4 peppers or 2 onions. But for the amount of chicken we're doing, this is gonna be perfect just like this. Okay, give it a good mix. So you can start to see the color difference in there. There we go. Okay. So if you look at it and you're like, oh, I need another pepper, throw another pepper in. That's absolutely okay. Okay. So let me grab a plate. So at this point, guys, I'm not touching the chicken anymore, so I don't need gloves. So we're just gonna keep it nice and safe. So I'm gonna take my tongs, grab my chickens, put them on my plate. So here's what I'm gonna grab: my salt, pepper, chicken, and my veggies, and we're all gonna come over to the stove, okay? Peppers and onions are gonna go off to the side. Chicken's gonna go next to your pan. Salt and pepper you'll need in a minute, so we're just gonna leave it right here. So now we're gonna turn up the heat to about medium-high, okay? And we're gonna start to get this hot. If you put it in a cold pan, it's just gonna absorb all that oil. That's not what we're looking for. What we're trying to do is we're trying to sear this chicken, which means I'm gonna build a crust on each side. I'm gonna take it off the heat, let it cool for a second. I'm gonna drop the heat of the pan. I'm gonna add a little bit of water in the pan just to get some moisture while it finishes cooking. Then we're gonna take it out, chop it, do the veggies, and we're gonna add the chicken back. So we'll come back in a second when this is nice and hot. Okay. Guys, our oil is nice and hot, so we're gonna start searing our chicken. Just very carefully, make sure you don't get any splatters or anything. Just gently lower it in. If you're doing multiple pieces of chicken, work in batches, okay? It'll be a lot easier than crowding the pan. So remember, we're not trying to cook the chicken right now. I'm just trying to get a nice crust and sear built up. The sear will, when we say sear, what we're doing is we're building a crust around the chicken so the moisture doesn't come out. And so this is actually a method. So if we were doing like pieces of steak, we would sear them and then we'd finish them in the oven. But for chicken, we're gonna finish this in the pan. This is actually what's called a one dish pot. So we're just gonna, everything's gonna get done in this pot. So we're just gonna flip our chicken. Whenever you're using dry spices, be very careful about the heat. Dry spices have a tendency to want to burn really quickly, okay? We're not trying to burn our chicken. So just be very, very careful with it. If you're using large pieces of meat, it's gonna take longer to sear. If you try to pick it up too quickly, it's gonna stick to the pan. You gotta wait for that crust to build before it'll start releasing properly. So if you guys have ever used a grill, it's the same basic principle. Okay. So that's all we're trying to do is sear. So you can see that beautiful crust getting built up. And this will stay on the chicken all the way throughout. So this is where the flavor for the fajita is going to come from, okay? Okay, that's good. So now I'm just going to take these off the heat real quick. Okay. I'm gonna drop the temp pretty low on this one. I'm gonna drop it down to about medium, 3 or 4. I'm gonna take all this extra grease that I have in here. I don't want that. I'm just gonna pour it into a bowl. Don't pour it into your trash can. Don't pour it down your drain. Pour it into a bowl, let it cool down. And then you can dispose of it in the trash, and that's the best way to go about that, okay guys? All right, so I'm gonna take about a 1/4 cup of water. Slowly, 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 I'm gonna pour it in here. Okay. So I'm gonna bring it off the heat if it bubbles a little too much, and I'm gonna put my chicken right back in here. And then I'm gonna continue to cook it with the lid on. So this, the moisture in here is gonna help basically steam the kitchen and cook it through, chicken, I'm sorry, I'm having a day today. So the steam is what's gonna help it cook. So we're just gonna leave that on low, and we're gonna let the chicken cook through to about 75% done, okay? So we'll check back in a minute.
Okay. How do you turn this off?
Okay, so this chicken's been cooking about 5 or 6 minutes. I want you guys to take a look at it. So you see how a lot of the water's dissolved, but the chicken is still really moist. The water helps it not burn. Even by pressing on this, if I temp this is probably about 140 degrees right now. Remember, we're looking for 165 to be done, but I don't want to finish this right now. So what I want to do is I want to just take these off. These are going to cool down, and I'm going to cut these, and we're going to finish them back at the pan. But right now I'm going to add just a tiny bit more oil back in, okay? And we're going to start doing, so I'm going to crank up my heat just a little bit, and we're going to start doing our veggies, okay? So veggies right in the pan. So this looks like a lot of veggies. These are going to cook down, and they're going to probably reduce by about half, okay? So right now we're going to add a little bit of pepper right under our veggies. Good pinch. We're going to do a good pinch of salt. We do the salt for a couple reasons. The salt is going to help season the veggies, but it's also going to help draw moisture out of it to help them break down and cook a little bit better. Okay, so we're just going to give them a quick stir. Make sure they, so all that stuff on the bottom, that's all fajita flavor. And I want to get my veggies mixed up with it. Okay, so I want my veggies to actually taste like something as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to let these cook for a couple minutes. I'm going to put the top on just to help them steam down a little bit, okay? And we'll check back in a minute. Okay, so these veggies have been cooking for about 3 minutes. I mean, you guys can literally see how much we're going to do. So these were going to the top of the pan here, but now we're down to about 1/4 of a pan. Okay, so these are almost done. They're nice and limp. You can still see what they are, but they're nice, and these are fajita veggies right here, okay? So we're just going to let these cook on cover for a minute. So we're going to come chop our chicken. Okay. So at this point, this chicken's nice and cool, but it's basically done at this point. So all we're gonna do is we're just gonna, what we're gonna do on this one, beginners, you guys haven't seen this yet, we're gonna cut on the bias. So if I was to cut the chicken straight like this, I would just get strips. I want little diagonal strips. So all I'm gonna do is turn my meat about 45 degrees, and then I'm just gonna chop it like this. Nice thin strips, about the same size as the peppers and the onions. Okay. So you can see it's not 100% done, but that's very close to being done, all right? So we're gonna finish these in the pan with the veggie in a second. Okay. So this was 1 chicken breast, and it actually makes a lot. This is enough to feed about 4 people, so, you know, if you got some hungry people in your family, do 2 chicken breasts. Thighs, do about 3 or 4, okay? Thighs are usually a little smaller. Okay, so we're gonna drop this right back into our pan. We're gonna give it a quick stir. Okay, and we're gonna let it finish cooking. So the chicken, now that it's like sort of exposed, it's gonna pick up the rest of this fajita stuff. It's gonna pick up the flavor of the onion. So I've seen people do the veggies in a separate pan, and I never understand the point of that. Like, the veggies never pick up the flavor of anything, they just taste like raw veggie. And, you know, I mean, whatever you want to do, it's up to you, but I always like doing it in the same pan, okay? So this chicken just needs about a minute more, and then we got fajitas. See, that looks really good. And so, you know, you do your regular toppings with it: cheese, sour cream, avocado, a little bit of pico de gallo, whatever you guys want to do. But this is gonna be so that is fajitas right there, guys. So if you guys want to be super fancy at home and you have a cast iron skillet, either let it heat up on top of the stovetop or throw it in the oven at 450 for 5-10 minutes. Be very careful when you bring it out, but you can dump your fajitas in that and it'll come out sizzling just like Applebee's or Chili's. It'll be like, and people are like, oh my god. So that's our fajitas today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video and check back for the tortilla one, okay? Bye, guys.